This is the Right Guys podcast, where we watch the DNC machine just keep chugging along. And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Welcome back, Right Guys podcast. Going live today, Tuesday. Didn't go yesterday. I was a little under the weather, and it makes more sense to react to the DNC than it does to predict what kind of craziness we're going to see.
Plus, that's like a live watch show, and I didn't want to do that during the DNC.
Yeah.
Like the RNC, I'd do it with you. We'd probably drink a little bit.
Remember what we did in 2020?
Boy, do I remember what we
hot wings.
Did. Yeah.
I did hot ones with bomb.
There was something I ate that I felt like down here.
Yeah, we made you take a shot. We peer pressured you to take a shot of hot sauce.
Yeah, it was great. And that was the one thing that people remembered me for. They were like, hot sauce. We don't know what else he does, but we love the hot sauce.
Yeah. So we're going to recap the DNC. We're also going to be joined by Miss Madison Marquette. She'll be on in a little bit because breaking news today that Donald Trump announcing that he wants the death penalty for child rapists and child traffickers, something that definitely piques your interest. Talk to her about that. I have questions, not reservations, just questions, just because we know that there were innocent men and women put on death row, even though they were eyewitnesses, they had DNA evidence, and they even had confessions, only to later find out years later that they were innocent all along. I just want to make sure there are enough safeguards here so it's not all of a sudden a death penalty offense for a he said, she said situation. Not saying that people who do it don't deserve it, but if we're going to put people to death, the libertarian in me says that the standard of evidence needs to be much, much, much higher than many of those cases currently are. But we'll talk to her when she comes on in the next few minutes. I wanted to get your impression, though. Did you watch the whole DNC last night?
I watched a lot of it. As soon as Hillary came on, I kind of felt sick in my stomach suddenly, and I didn't feel very well, so I decided to turn it off and come back. AOC was riveting when she came out. I mean, she is like fervent, and it was interesting to watch her energy. She's up there acting like she's next in line. So y'all be warned, if if Kamala wins, who might be the vice presidential pick on the next ticket, right?
Yeah.
Or the next person who's running, because you can see an AOC running for president, and that's not a joke.
It's not a joke, but listen, if Kamala Harris can run, then absolutely. But I mean, they need to install AOC the way that they install Kamala. I think what's flagrantly apparent about that whole first evening, a couple things, and we're gonna get into clips in a second. Like, comment, share if you haven't already. Help us reach more people. This whole thing that they're about joy and this so demure, that bullshit. I didn't see any of that last night. I saw none of that last night. I mean, saying that their campaign's all about joy, and this was Joe Biden.
Angry as hell again. Yeah,
there's not a lot of joy there. Not very demure, as the left claims. It makes me wonder, were we lied to here? I mean, they said Donald Trump's name 130 more times than they talked about things like inflation and crime and the border.
It's all
I think it was like 146 times last night his name was spoken. You'll remember when Trump gave his speech against Biden, he only mentioned him once.
Yeah, he didn't even really want to. And there was a bunch of also talk on passing of the baton. Like that was the catchphrase, right? Pass the baton, pass the baton, pass the baton. I heard it so much from so many speakers. It just kind of, it just starts looking thin at this point. What's that old thing from?
I don't want to
too much butter.
Yeah, I don't want to play the clip of Hillary Clinton laughing about how Trump is getting prosecuted. Listen, with the power of hindsight, if Donald Trump knew what he knows now back in 2016, she'd be in prison right now. if he knew that the Democrats were going to weaponize
Mhm.
the judicial system against him, he wouldn't have come out after he won in 2016 and saying, for the good of the country, we're not going to prosecute Hillary Clinton for her crimes. And she wouldn't have been up there. She'd be in prison under the Espionage Act. But this is a clip that really made me chuckle based on what we've heard from the DNC. Let's play it.
Cares about kids and families, cares about America.
This made me laugh because Kamala Harris, just in the last 2 weeks, was against the child tax credit before she was forced to be for it. But Josh, right now, if you're at the DNC, they have a Planned Parenthood van out, literally giving free vasectomies and abortion pills for the DNC. Come to the DNC, end your bloodline.
Like, how does that work? Like, how do you walk in like a walk-in vasectomy sounds like a bad idea. It's like like a discount vasectomy. Some things you just don't, you don't buy.
I just hope they're parked when they're doing it. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
Imagine hitting a speed bump.
Right.
Imagine hitting a speed bump for doing that. Apparently 100% packed full. They have no more spots.
And then there was Plan B pills everywhere. I think they're handing out Plan B, and it was just like, talk about wearing their emotions on their sleeve. That's like a sponsor position, right up front.
Yeah, imagine
the best.
Imagine getting a vasectomy day one of the DNC and then having to sit down in the arena for the next 3 days.
There's no way.
That'd be rough.
And what guy's going to be there doing that? Like,
yeah, it's hard to say you're for families when the leading news story in advance of the DNC was that the DNC is helping to end bloodlines and completely sterilize husbands.
Like,
it's a weird talking. But beyond that, I'm gonna play you a clip and warning: don't laugh at this. There's gonna be an impulse to laugh at how awkward this is.
All right.
But this is when I turned off the DNC last night for a little bit.
In 2008, we met while working on the Obama-Biden campaign.
That's the ultimate translator.
Joined now by Madison. Madison, you laughed. We specifically said you can't laugh.
Thanks.
Listen, I was laughing at your guys' face, and then I started listening. I was like, what did I just walk into? What the hell?
This was Brian Welch. He's diagnosed with ALS, and he has been given 6 months to live. Gosh. But they trotted him out and had him grunt and have his significant other translate, his wife translate. It was just, it's uncomfortable because I don't know. That was 2017. I don't know. Like, it's awkward because they could have him say anything. Mm-hmm. It's just, it was weird. I turned on the DNC one speaker before this, and I said, okay, I'm not ready for this yet. I'm not ready for this. I need to drink a couple of beers first.
Why didn't we get invited over?
I know.
Yeah.
Never get to drive over and hang out with the cool kids.
I want to get your thoughts, Matt Singers. I know we don't have you for a long time, but before we get your thoughts on the Donald Trump plan to put child rapists and child traffickers to death penalty, I want to get your take on this fantastic rendition of the Star Spangled Banner that was performed at the beginning of one of the DNC's kind of offshoots, one of their committee meetings.
Producer Josh's face is giving y'all.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be talking during the national anthem.
I can't.
Stripes and who's leading this?
That's not the only part.
Oh, well, thank you for putting
that woman in blue at the podium. I had a ton of respect for her because she was off and she just kept going.
Yeah.
She just got shamed into following the backing track. That had all of the hallmarks of a classic.
I can't.
I mean, should we try the same thing, like on the air
So
once? See if we
patriotic.
can pull that
So
off.
patriotic. So patriotic.
I think we should wrap it.
Oh, no. There's too much mayonnaise everywhere for this. That's so white it doesn't happen, dude.
I mean, this is the women's caucus of the DNC.
No.
It was rough. That's rough. I saw that, and I have to play it, but it also makes me deeply uncomfortable.
I find it so disrespectful to our national anthem. Like, find someone that can sing it and have them stand at the podium and sing it and then be done with it. Like, it's a mockery. You know that it's a mockery. Anything that these people do to me just seems like it's a mockery, and it pisses me off because that's like, this is our country. Like, F off.
Hey, I've been to third grade concerts where they had more rhythm and they were like singing the actual lyrics to the song as it was going. I'm just going to say that there probably wasn't a lot of what we call rehearsal on this one.
Yeah, that was.
These look like third graders. At least will look at the teacher. Who are they all looking at? They're all like looking different places, different. Like,
I'm just gonna sing it out. Just gonna sing it out.
Yeah, just gonna push through it. That was awkward. Wanted to play.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny. Mainly want to get your take, Madison, on this news that broke. I don't know if you saw it. I texted you so you know about it. I'm trying to find the video of it, but this was a tweet that was reposted by the Trump War Room account on Twitter. Aisha Hasney, news: Trump will announce today in Howell, Michigan, that he will ask for the death penalty for child rapists and child traffickers. Also, he will make it a felony for any medical professional to perform surgery on a minor without parental consent. Wanted to get your take, especially on this bottom one, since you work to help free traffickers and help traffickers escape.
Well, I don't free traffickers. You go after traffickers.
Yeah. Well, no, you free the traffic victims.
Yeah,
Sorry, I know. I'm not the first person that's made this mistake. You go out and you free trafficking victims, help them escape, help them get their lives back on track. Yeah. What's your immediate reaction to this news?
Sure. Well, I'll say this too, because you'll laugh at this. My youngest son, which Max knows, someone asked, "What does your mom do for a living?" And he goes, "She's a trafficker." I'm like, no, I'm not.
Whoa!
Yeah. It's one of your mouth talks faster than your brain, and you actually, if you're off by a little, you're actually off by a lot.
He doesn't know. He just hears the word trafficking. There's a little, but. I have a lot of opinions on this, but I'll give you my initial thoughts. Within regards to, I'm gonna because I don't have a big within regards to the surgery, I agree. I think it's child abuse. I think I'm gonna address that one first with minors. First of all, children cannot consent, and their parents are their authority, and so for you to go and have them have surgery. I have a teenager who's hormonal. I could not imagine having him be hopped up on some other hormone that's not within his body type. To me, that's child abuse. They're hormonal already, and no one warned you about how hormonal teenagers are. They give you toddler books, but not about teenagers. So imagine hopping them up on all of these hormones. And I'm going to use Colorado, the STEM school, as an example. The kid that shot up the STEM school, this was 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer. He was a transgender kid that came out years later. So my guess is that he was hopped up on drugs and everything else. He should not drugs like, hormonal drugs. Those parents should be liable. If these kids go and do something because they're not in their right mind, they should be liable. Now, I am all for the death penalty for traffickers and pedophiles, but here is my issue. And we're going to go back, which Max is going to love. Is these are not Article 3 courts. The problem right now, if you think, say Kamala Harris, or I'm going to use her, she was a prosecutor. All of these prosecutors make money off of people being on death row, being in prison, and everything else. There has to be unrefutable evidence that these are traffickers and pedophiles. The problem is, there are women, think about in divorce cases, right? Women and men lie about each other being an abuser. And then because one might be narcissistic or sociopathic, the district attorney could believe them. And then what? Because of a lie, they get on death row. So yes, I am all for it, but there has to be actual unrefutable evidence that these people are the traffickers and that, when we go after them, we have to investigate every single person that's an adult. Even if it's a woman that we believe is a victim, we have to make sure, because they also are good. Victims are good at lying and manipulating, because that's the world they live in and that's what they learn. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I just have such an issue with these courts right now and how they're run. If you do forensic audit on any court case, any criminal case, there is bonds attached to it. There's a bid bond, a payment bond, and a performance bond, and they're making money off of it. So who's to say, like, I'm going to use Max. Someone called Max a trafficker because he was in front of the hot dog wiener thing. So say that, which he's not. Listen, I want to preface this.
Yeah.
Max has
I just thought it was funny to see it outside of my King Supers when I lived in Chicago, Colorado.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like so asinine. But let's just say that lie got traction. And then they said, okay. And then this person, who I believe is unhinged and a psychopath, like, that lied about it, she's unhinged and lying. If this took off like crazy, and they said, you know what, well, we're going to charge him anyway. And they're going to charge him because they're going to make money off of the court case. And then Max goes and gets to be put on the death penalty, all over this person that lied, and all because he stood in front of a hot dog wiener car with his kid. Like, you know what I mean? So that's where it's like, I'm all for it. I see, but you also know who are pedophiles and traffickers, because they're just demonic. There's no light about them. And it's such a spiritual war. And I don't think people even realize that aspect of it. And so you kind of can know who is and who isn't. But the problem is the prosecutors that we have now aren't honest prosecutors. So how do, my question to President Trump is, okay, how are you going to ensure that you're not killing an innocent man? That's where my question would be. There's got to be, right now the courts run rampant as a corporation, and we need these Article 3 courts and not these corporations where they're profiting off of each case. I mean, each case is worth, some of them are worth billions, some of them are worth millions. I mean, you can go on the Bloomberg terminal, you can go type in any case number, and you can see on the Bloomberg terminal or on Fidelity how it's being traded on the stock market. And so again, if someone's innocent, so let's use it again, go back to Max. If this lie was, they wanted to believe this woman, right? And here's the thing, I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying anything bad about Lynn Wood, but at the time this woman was connected to Lynn Wood. Who are they going to believe, Max or Lynn Wood? Like, that sounds like really horrible to say, but Lynn Wood has a following. Lynn Wood was a prosecutor. So this woman that's connected to Lynn Wood is making up false accusations. So then what? How do we fight for Max on death row when we know without a shadow of a doubt he's not a pedophile?
I like to think that a Telegram post from a grifter wouldn't put me on death row, but I think it's an interesting point, because, like, let me get Josh. Josh, you weigh in and I'll give my thoughts.
Well, if something like this happens, right, we got to ensure that innocent people do not get the death penalty. But imagine all the things that has to happen with something like that. Now you got to start defining what that crime is. You got to start putting in words what prosecutors can use to go after them, right? And you've got to start proving these crimes on a court level. So it makes me think that there's this whole new Pandora's box that'll get opened with that, and it's a good one. But like, some of these offenses, what institutes a sex crime at that point? What are they going to start adding, like, layers to this, right? Because what if I mooned somebody and that became a sex crime in Colorado, right? I showed my butt cheeks, and then suddenly you are a sex offender. Is that real?
I know someone who was facing.
Sorry, go ahead, Max.
I know someone in college who got drunk and pissed on the side of the road, and I don't know whether he beat it or not, but the charge he was facing would have forced him to register as a sex offender, because he pissed on the side of the road because he was drunk. Madison, I ask you this all the time when we talk about you talk about a case of trafficking or someone. I always ask you the same question. Well, is it real trafficking, or did they take the kid without their ex-wife's permission and
cross the lines? Trafficking.
But
To me,
there are
yeah,
ways that they could get those charges, especially if they take them across state lines. It could be kidnapping,
Sure.
when really it's like, oh well, there was a dispute on who gets custody. And same is true for instances of sexual assault, rape. I mean, there are really bad people out there, 100%. There are also people who don't deserve to face those charges, and it comes from he said, she said arguments. There are a lot of people on death row who have been proven innocent even after being convicted with DNA evidence, eyewitness testimony, and coerced confessions.
that,
The idea
let me
that you could just do it as a he said, she said
But
is
that's what,
crazy.
let me tell you something. I work a lot of cases, right? We investigate a lot. And there's a couple cases that we're working right now. I'll give one example where the mom is clearly trafficking the daughter. Okay. Now, okay. Producer Josh, you don't have, I'm gonna explain why. Producer Josh, you don't have kids, right? But Max, you have kids.
Yes.
But Max, your kids aren't at this age yet. When you open up an account for your child, like a bank account, the mom or dad or whoever, the guardian has to be on that bank account. So you can't just a 10-year-old can't go into the bank and say, hey, let me open up an account. Like, it doesn't work that way, right?
Sure.
Okay, so this mom, she started accusing multiple men across the US, and she like has traveled, right? She's like moved to states each year or each 2 years, and she told her daughter, okay, we're going to ask them for money. If they don't give us the money, then you're going to say that they did this to you. No DNA evidence, no, like even the nurses that like testified, it's like there's no DNA evidence, there is no sign of like sexual assault or trauma or anything like that. But this mom is going and conning these men, and when they say, hey, I'm not going to give you money because you're trying to like extort me, then she goes and accuses them, right? So here you have this mom. So fast forward, this investigation's gone on for a while. Fast forward to recently, this child who's now 17 got pulled over. She got pulled over. Or no, she didn't get pulled over. She was in a car with a boyfriend. A cop was like, what are you doing? And they had their clothes off. So they're obviously doing, And so then the officer started investigating it. When you read the police report states that this child was selling pictures on Telegram and Instagram, and people were paying her through PayPal. But let me tell you something. Again, a child cannot have PayPal or a bank account unless the mom knows. It all traces back to the mom. And when the mom is questioned, she's like, oh, I didn't know she was doing any of this. And then the mom also says, well, I didn't know she had a boyfriend that was older when she was 14. How do you not know what your 14-year-old is doing? Yet then there's these innocent men right now. Okay, there's one in California and one in Florida that we know for sure. They're in prison innocently because of this mom. Frankly, if you're going to do the death penalty for these men and they go to prison for the death penalty and they find out that those men are innocent, then that mom should have to go and have the same punishment for the crime. Now, like
that should be true for any false police
100%.
report that leads to an imprisonment of someone who's innocent. If it's overturned and you lied under oath to try and put them in prison, you should have to serve the rest of the time, at least, right? You should serve the sentence.
Right. 100%. That's where it's like, it can be so black and white, but I feel like it's not such a black and white issue.
Yeah.
And you think of like, going back to, divorce cases, how many women have reached out to me and is like, I want help, but they're just fighting with their ex. I'm like, listen, you chose to have a baby with this person. You need to work it out. This is not a trafficking case, and stop saying it's trafficking or your kids being abused when you're just trying to one up the other parent. Because it's both. Don't get me wrong. It's men and women both do it.
Oh, it's all lies. There'd also, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, because as much as I like the idea of bona fide child rapists, serial child traffickers to get the death penalty, you'd also have to work out issues of jurisdiction. Not everything can be a federal crime, so it'd have to cross state lines most likely to be a federal crime, or there'd have to be some kind of aggravated element of it, of using a weapon, using a firearm, kidnapping, to rise to the level of not just being a federal crime, but being a capital federal crime that you can have the death penalty. There's lots of things you have to work out. I think it probably would end up being a subset of that. If you have a guy who's a serial child rapist and you can prove that he did it in like 4 or 5 states, crossing state lines, that's a clear case for a federal charge. A lot different in terms of federal jurisdiction. If it is like a local matter, he said, she said, it could get very, very messy. It just could. And we don't have the federal resources. As it is, we're letting illegal aliens walk into the country because we don't have enough people to prosecute them. If you all of a sudden throw every child predator into the federal dockets, I don't know, it would grind to a halt.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Josh look like you want to say something, and then I'll comment on that.
Yeah, because I was thinking that any one of the Johns that would participate in those nefarious acts with children, they could also have the same law applied to them, because now they've been the abuser. They could be facing a death penalty for a sex crime on a child. I mean, that what I'm getting at is this could have far-reaching implications down the road, and anybody who's ever been involved in any way. What if they were doing the same thing and like somebody owned a store and they were renting it out the back? Does the store now become just as liable? Right? Or somebody that rented out a thing. Like, there's so much that
there's gotta be some aggravated element to it.
But we know, and like, I want the worst possible outcome for people that absolutely do this. And if you can prove that you've got it without a reasonable doubt, I mean, there's a reason you don't want them back in society. Like, just don't spend that money. It's time for them to,
Well, then there's ways to get proof of that. Like, when we're investigating traffickers, there's a long investigation that goes into it. You have to see where the traffickers are. Usually is across state lines, or country lines, depending on where, the trafficker is at this point. And so there is irrefutable evidence there. But then again, you have like the main traffickers, and then you go and you extract kids, and then there's people there, and you're like, who here is involved? You have evidence of maybe one or two, but then there could be 5 or 6 there that are either just getting money to like hold the kids or whatever. Not that I'm saying that that's not a demonic thing and they shouldn't be punished for it, but if they haven't touched the kid, like where do you kind of draw the line? Where do you know what I mean? It's such a hard like thing to say, hey, and here's the other thing too, and I know it's none of my business. I know Max believes in God because we talk about it, and then I don't know what you, but I believe in God. So when is it that we're able, like, that we play God and we can take someone's life? Like, that's, where that might not be, people might not want to hear that, but I listen and I see them, right? And I see these demons all the time. And, it's just, I feel like I had a lot to say, and then I'm kind of going back and forth of like,
it's the kind of thing that you're like, it sounds good, like yeah, and then you're like, but what about this? Yeah. So it will need to be a policy that's clearly laid out. It can't be retroactive, because I am vehemently against charging people with crimes that didn't exist when the alleged crime was committed. There's some people who think you should be able to do that. I mean, that was one of the debates at Nuremberg. The definition of the crime of genocide was codified after World War II. There were a lot of people who wanted to charge Nazi war criminals with a crime that didn't exist during the Holocaust. So there's an ethical thing of, can you accuse someone of breaking a crime in the past that didn't exist then? So it's got to be forward thinking, and there has to be some real laid out situations where it does apply and where it doesn't apply.
Well, and the judges and the district attorney cannot be profiting off of these cases. They are all turned into security instruments, and these cannot be security agreements. These have to be true courts, because then you have an ethical duty under the Constitution to make the right choice of what the laws are, and not because you're profiting off of a security agreement that they've turned a court case into, and that's where, how do you find those people? I mean, frankly, okay, we're talking about, the death penalty for child traffickers, but why don't we talk about these doctors that have jabbed our children, the kids that have died of SIDS, that will die of SIDS in the future because they've given them jabs that aren't, tested or whatever. Like, when we were little, we didn't have that many vaccines.
Forget about the testing. Forget about the testing. Doing it without the parents' knowledge or consent. Giving medicines to kids and not telling the parents. How could the parent ever be able to decide what healthcare they should give the kid later? Right? I mean, if you give one of these vaccines to a kid and that kid has an allergic reaction, I mean, I'm one of those. I'm allergic to the tetanus shot, so I don't get the tetanus shot anymore.
Oh.
If I step on a rusty nail, I'm just going to have to go to the hospital. But like if you give a kid a shot and they have an allergic reaction and they go home and the parent doesn't know that they had a shot, how can the parent possibly take care of their kid if they don't know what could be causing it? They'll go to the hospital and the hospital will be perplexed. Why is her windpipe closing? Or what's she allergic to? They don't know. Right? They don't know.
And then she dies, and then what? Because the doctor, they say that the doctor can have confidentiality with these children. To me, that's child abuse right there. So, my friend and I talk about, like, when our kids get older, like, we don't know what the long-term effects of some of these vaccines are, right? And I'm not saying, like, we just don't know what the long-term effects. So what if we have kids and it's like, what if our kids can't have babies or whatever? Like,
we don't know.
They're not going to be able to,
we don't know,
have a family or anything because they've got the jab.
Yeah. I'm scared of that. I'm also scared of this movement in Democrat blue cities and states where the kid can go to the school nurse and they can get hormone treatments without the parent knowing. They put on birth control without the parent knowing. As a parent, when I take my kid to the doctor, I have to fill out the form saying what kind of medications is my child taking? What are they allergic to?
Yeah.
If you don't tell the doctor everything, they could prescribe your child something that counteracts or something that would harm them if taken in conjunction with something else. If you don't know everything your child's being given and putting in their bodies, it is literally Russian roulette to take them to the doctor or the hospital. You have no idea. And it's insane. It's just insane, which is why I firmly support the felony charge for people who perform surgery on a minor without parental consent. Absolutely. The death penalty thing, in the right context, with the right guardrails, right, with the right appeal process, I could get behind, but it has to be a very limited subset.
But let me ask you guys a question here, and then because, and I know you're on YouTube too, right? So I'll be careful here. We know
every
that
time you're on, they take our videos down.
I have to send you.
We're one strike away. We're one strike away from losing it, so be careful.
No, I'm not. I won't. I'll have to send you a text that the AI is sending people that like my post on Facebook. I'll text it to you later. But no. So think about, okay, President Trump is saying he's going to do this, right? But when the what happened in 2020, right? When they locked everything down, who had the power of each state to lock things down? It was the governors. The governors hold a lot of power. So
and also local health officials. Like people you had no idea who they even were all of a sudden closing restaurants. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So they had all this power. And I love President Trump. Okay. I'm not saying anything against him. My thing is how can he promise that when the governors have all of this power? And in California, they just passed a law. Well, this was a while ago. They passed this law. If there is a 13-year-old and a 23-year-old, ask that child, with as long as there's a 10-year age span, to have ANAL, in the butt, then it's legal as long as the child consents. So there could be a 10-year-old and a 20-year-old. Tell me how he can promise that when the governors are holding so much power in these states. See, these are questions that I think people don't critically think. And that's one of the things I'm like, wait, just as you were talking, I'm like, look what happened in 2020 of how the governors had so much power. I mean, I was in Colorado and they were locking down everything left and right. I mean, one of my friends now, she had a store in Evergreen, and she didn't make people put on the I don't want to get you.
Careful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the thing.
We might have already crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah, I have no idea where we're at.
I'll get an email tomorrow.
Jump in here because you guys talk too much. But I'm thinking that when did schools think that they could start handing down healthcare or be the gateway to things for our children and not the parents? Like, what makes them more what's the word for it? have a high horse on this. I mean, they're the ones that think that they have all the righteousness when it comes to figuring out the health of your child, right? That I just don't think the state should be in there or in the business of telling me what my kid should or shouldn't be taking. Right. And they don't have there's no downhill effects for people that might be administering those things. Right. They don't have to worry about the medical bills later when they have osteoporosis because they didn't develop right. Right. When they've got brain disorders and they didn't develop right. And does a school now become liable? Because they should, because they had a direct hand in messing up lives. Right. Maybe that's something that we should also explore inside of this. Right. Because if anybody's giving care that parents don't want, I'm all for that turning into a felony, because it should be. Because what's to stop the government from doing those things? All you have to do is get all the teachers' unions together to get the right kind of nurses into a school.
You want the timeline for when this thinking really started coming
Yeah,
about?
I do. Hit me, man.
1996, Hillary Clinton published a book, It Takes a Village, in which she advocated that in addition to parents and grandparents and family members taking care of people, that children should also be raised by their neighbors, by teachers, priests, doctors, employers, politicians have a role in raising your kids, nonprofits,
Wow,
businesses, and NGOs even have a role in helping your kids grow up. This is when this is a pivotal moment where it went mainstream, this idea that it's not like, the Barack Obama saying you might have a business, but you didn't build that. Yeah. This was kind of like, you might have a kid, but you're not the only one raising that kid. That's where crazy. I would pinpoint it, at least going mainstream.
Yeah. And it's shocking that they want to monopolize education, right? Yeah. Imagine all those powerful teachers unions in there. They're all behind that too, who read the book, shared it with their friends, right? A whole generation of teachers out there were taught this probably in college. I don't know. I
find that crazy though, because like we as like our friends, okay, so like, Max and Annie and I have all hung out and been around each other's kids, like, in the past. And like, okay, when it takes a village, to me in my head, it's like, okay, Annie and Max believe very similar to me. So if Max is watching my kids, right? Max and Annie are like babysitting my kids, say, I would trust them at that point to give them a punishment, like a timeout, or take their technology away if I'm not around. To me, having anybody else that's not like your friends and family that you absolutely trust with your most precious gift, which are your children, then they shouldn't be involved whatsoever at all. Like, and this is why, like, the schools in 5th grade, they're teaching, sex education. And that's like, to me, I don't even think they should be teaching that. I think those are conversations that parents should be having with their children, because, I don't want some rando teacher talking to my kid about that in 5th grade about, and I don't know if that's a good teacher or a bad teacher, because there's good and bad and everything. There are some amazing teachers that I'm sure probably present it very well. But back when I was a kid, they just taught you about like your body's changing and everything else. Now they're teaching this whole other side of it. It's, to me, this seems dirty. And that's like, see, you're talking about like for like child abusers, but there is such a level of so many of them that are like, maybe they've never touched a child, but they're out there teaching, saying that, these types of things to 5 and 6-year-olds. So it's just a fine.
In any other situation, if an adult said, hey, I want to talk to kids who aren't mine about sex, they'd be charged with the crime, right?
Yeah.
And now I can understand that we live in a world where that might be a topic of conversation in a school, because there's going to be school health classes. You're talking about 5th grade. I think my first one was in 4th grade. When I grew up, when I was in elementary school. The craziness is, though.
Do you know what sex is now, Max? Do we need to have that talk?
The craziness of this is, like, we live in a society where if any adult talks to someone else's kids about sex, it's a crime. But not only are we going to have a school that now does it, but the parents can't weigh in on it. The parents can't say that's inappropriate for my son. The parents can't say no. It's one thing to say that the exception for that crime should be a health teacher. It's an entirely different thing to say, oh, not only is the health teacher going to talk to your children about sex, but you're now allowed to veto it, and we get to tell them whatever we want to tell them. that's a very uncomfortable departure from the norm, which is adults don't talk to kids about sex. They don't hand out pornographic images. They don't hand out pornographic cartoons. You don't do that.
No.
So that's the uncomfortable bit.
Well, you know, the STEM school in Colorado, so before, when we were living there, my oldest was going there, and COVID happened, right? And so they did the, like, at home, you could choose right at home or whatever. And my youngest was going to go into kindergarten because and it's a charter school. So we were going to go to kindergarten. They sent out, I need to find it, Max, so you could post it. I need to post it too. Only just involves my kids. So, but they sent out an email stating that they were going to teach anal, what, to kids. And I called the principal at the time and I said, are you serious? Are you really going to teach this? Like, this is child abuse. My 5-year-old's never gone to school. He's never gone to preschool. Like, he's been home with me because I've worked from home. Like, that would be, no, he needs to learn colors and how to write and how to, all of the things that kindergartners do, right? That's what they need to learn. And she goes, well, we'll lose our funding if we don't. And I said, so you're more worried about your funding than you are. And if you go back and look at that principal, or not the principal, the head of the school, it wasn't the principal, the head of the school. She was making like over, I want to say it was like close to $500,000 a year. And I'm like, this is not, it was a crazy number.
Principals make that much dough?
Well, if the principal, sometimes principals will cover multiple schools. Sometimes they'll be an upper school and a lower school. So they actually do have multiple jobs. It's excessive. Superintendents make even more than principals.
I believe it was the superintendent, not the principal. It was a superintendent.
So they're covering multiple schools. It's still a lot of money. It's still a ton, way too much money.
Lord.
But they have a lot more to do. And
that's why they don't want to lose their funding.
Yeah.
Because
at the same time,
it's going to their pocket.
Yes. We're here. We're joined by Madison Marquette talking about this. We want to get back into the DNC. So before we let you go, thank you for stopping by. I want to get your take on what Andy Beshear said, Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky. He yesterday was talking about J.D. Vance's position on abortion, which is a very common pro-life position, which is even if a baby is conceived through rape or incest, that baby is still a human being, and it doesn't make sense in the really total pro-life opinion to respond to that crime by killing an innocent third party. And Andy Beshear yesterday called for J.D. Vance. He said he hopes that J.D. Vance will experience that, essentially saying that he hopes that J.D. Vance, one of J.D. Vance's family members, gets raped underage. It's a crazy thing. Wow. He denied it, even though he said it. Let's watch the clip.
Morning show. Okay. I'm going to just prepare you for this. Saying that well, let me take a look at what he said about you.
J.D. Vance calls pregnancy resulting from rape inconvenient. Like, inconvenience is traffic. I mean, make him go through this.
So what he's saying is that you were somehow suggesting, he said, what the hell is this? Why is Andy Beshear, he tweeted this out, wishing that a member of my family would get raped? What a disgusting person. So how do you respond to that? I mean,
well,
is that what you were talking about?
Of course not. It's ridiculous, but it's also deflection. I mean, J.D. Vance knows that he and Donald Trump.
That's what he said.
At that same convention.
I hope that J.D. Vance has to go through this. What is this? A family member, underage family member, or just family member, being raped and conceiving a child.
Let me tell you something, because and Max knows this because you work in this world of abortion and you're pro-life, and I'm pro-life as well, but I'm not going to get into that right now. That's a whole nother show, right? We'll need to get in. My thing is listen, for someone that was trafficked for almost a decade and someone that steals sex from you, I don't care who it is. I don't care if you're an adult or you're under age. That is the most intimate, precious thing you can steal from someone. And to come on the other side of that trauma and to actually find a good therapist that can help you come on the other side of that trauma is like near impossible. Thank God I had one that was amazing. And so for any person to say that is so demonic because, you know, listen, I'm not a fan of JD Vance's. I love Trump. I'm not a fan of JD Vance, but I also know that Trump is an expert in the art of war. And so he picks people for whatever reason. And it's none of my business because I'm not in the presidency, right? Running the whatever, right? That my opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I hated JD Vance, which I don't hate him. You don't wish that upon anyone. And this is just like the left, just like what he said there. He deflected and then said, like, he brought it around to Trump and Vance like it was their issue that he said it. No, you're a demonic piece of crap to say that about anybody. And what I've noticed with men like that think that that's okay, that they can just go take it, usually they're probably some kind of predator themselves. And I've never been wrong on it. I don't have the receipts. That's allegedly because I don't have any receipts on this dude. But that's my opinion on it. So it's just disgusting because why should anyone have that taken from them at all? Like that's just, Anyway, that's my comment on it. And as like a mom and of people and an advocate for these
pretty
women,
shocking, though, right?
It's so shocking.
He's the governor of Kentucky.
You know what's even more shocking, Max, is that people don't get outraged with a comment like that. It's just kind of like they just say, oh, let's blame it on the left. And it's like, no, okay, if you're in Kentucky, you should be like protesting and standing out and say, why would you say that? Because what if JD Vance was you or your sister or your brother or your wife? Like, what if JD Vance was your family member and you're saying that? Like, that's where I have an issue with that. So
plus it instigates people. Right? I mean, that kind of becomes one of those things like, yeah, I'll do it for you to prove a point, right? Because there are those weirdos out there. Then there's those other weirdos that are championing it, right?
Yeah. It's activating predators. What they're doing right now, and then I'll let you guys get back to your DNC, is they are normalizing P3DOs. See what I did there?
I've started using that. I've started using P3DOs.
Yeah, they're normalizing them, okay, and they're normalizing what this governor just said of attacking women, and then they're like, oh, and then they'll use the hormone thing or whatever. They'll use some kind of excuse of why it was okay, and it'll never be his fault. But guess what? If something happened to JD Vance's, like anybody in his family, like from now to that present, like the election in November, guess what? I really hope that they go and like sue the crap out of him because you've pushed him to go do something crazy.
Because this isn't like a hypothetical. Like I wonder what he'd be like if he was in the situation. That's like a hypothetical. You can say that, but it's the make him go through this with this being so he can't get pregnant. So it'd have to be a loved one getting raped and impregnated. It's just so off-putting for him he didn't even like say, I'm really sorry if that's how he took it. That's not how I meant it. He just kind of brushed to the side and went back into the spin zone. It's really disgusting. I saw that and it's
that's what they believe.
Par for the course though.
It's predatory behavior. Yeah. So
all right, well Max, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate you stopping by again.
Yeah, of course. Have fun.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.
Well, never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Okay, so we have 11 minutes to get through the entire night one of these DNC.
Well, that was no plan. Let's
talk about it. I should have known when I was like, Max, come on for a couple minutes. It's always more. We've gotten through some of it. I want to play this clip of New York Governor Hochul. I want to play the awkwardness of it and then see where the awkwardness actually came from. Here's this clip.
Motto is Excelsior, ever upward. And Trump takes us ever downward.
Oh my God.
So it's cringy. It's cringy. But this clip is making the rounds. What people aren't all showing is what came right before this cringy Trump brings us downwards. Her, as the head of state government in New York, bragging about Trump being prosecuted in New York.
Wow. No wonder he had a fleet of Mar-a-Lago. Sorry about that, Florida. Sorry about that.
That's effed
Trump
up.
hasn't spent much time in New York lately, except that is to get convicted of 34 felonies.
Wow.
And that's just fine with us.
Wait, can
because
you
New York's
use that in
motto
court?
is Excelsior, ever upward. And Trump takes us ever downward.
Now, this
Holy
adds
crap.
a bit more context to that. We like that he got charged with 34 felonies, she says, in the entirely political context of the Democrat National Convention, and the belief that he has to be charged with 34 felonies because he goes against the state motto and he brings us downward. A little bit cut. The first clip, you're like, wow, that's stupid. That's cringeworthy. They think that they're so smart. But when you watch the entire clip in the context, like, oh crap, she's bragging about Trump being prosecuted under state law, and she's the head of that state government.
That's insane, because if I'm the Trump team now, my argument would be this came from the governor down. This was a total hit piece. And not only was it a hit piece by them, they bragged about it at their DNC because they got their political aims. And there's the damage, right? There's the motivation, right? We did this based entirely on politics. And if I'm the Trump team, I'm fuming. I'm pissed because they just said the quiet part out loud. They just admitted what it was. The witch hunt was just admitted to right there.
Yeah.
I knew Hochul was dirty, but man, that kind of statement, that's even low for like a Democrat. You know, the Dems will swing low and they'll go real low, but this one's a new one.
Yeah.
That's New York Democrats for you, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. All right. So we got 8 minutes. Here is Jamie Raskin having a little trouble with his teleprompter.
Told Donald Trump that the president's job under Article 2 of the Constitution
Is he talking about removing Trump?
So the line is, under the Article 2 of the Constitution, that it must make sure that the laws be faithfully executed. His teleprompter stopped working, so he didn't know what he was actually supposed to say. If you had written that speech, if you had practiced that speech, you could finish that line because you know what you're supposed to say. Instead, he got hung up in the middle of the damn line. Wow. In the middle of the line.
What a absolute douche.
Yeah.
God. Is he a lawyer?
I believe so. Most of them are.
It makes, how many, it surprises me how many people are hey, was Pelosi there? She had some sort of yellow dress.
She did. And there was a moment during Joe Biden's speech where it was either Joe Biden's speech or one of the other Biden family members, where the crowd was chanting, "We love Joe." And the camera pans to her and you can see her saying it, but not with her whole heart behind it. You only get it for a second. So it's "We love Joe. We love Joe." And here's Nancy Pelosi saying along.
Wow. It's like that one tasted dirty to her. Like she could taste it in her mouth. She didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
Wow. What a
All right, so let's go through some of the clips. We only have 5 minutes. Here is Joe Biden declaring that it is his ultimate goal in the time he has left to strengthen illegal immigration.
Kamala and I are committed to strengthening legal immigration.
To strengthening illegal immigration?
Strengthening illegal immigration. Now, it's one of those things where put the words together, it could sound that way, but we know this is where it gets the Freudian slip. An administration that has, in every way possible, tried to support and increase people crossing across the border illegally. You wonder, is that him just talking too fast, or was that a little Freudian slip?
Well, I mean, he's not known for the break he likes to put on the things he wants to say. So, and dementia does do that, right? You just start saying the things that you're thinking out because there's nothing else there.
Yes.
But I'm sure he meant to strengthen normal immigration.
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. Here is Joe Biden taking credit for the Democrats being the ones who reopened schools.
During the pandemic, Kamala and I helped states and cities get back their schools back open.
Bullshit. Total
What
absolute garbage.
What he's not explaining is every red city, red state was already reopening. He had to work with the Democrat cities and Democrat states who didn't want to reopen. I mean, that's like saying, hey, we worked with, I mean, there are people, did you see the protests outside wearing masks?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The flute player who was wearing a mask during one of the, I'm like, what is that? What is that?
Yeah. Taking credit for that. It's so obviously a lie, but this was Joe Biden's swan song. Joe Biden's swan song was lie after lie after lie. And he tried it out this one too.
The president was asked what he thought had happened. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "There are very fine people on both sides." My God. That's what he said.
Still doing this.
Snopes.
Yeah. I was going to say, even Snopes knows, dude.
He says it more frequently since Snopes did this.
What?
You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Just lie. Just lie after lie after lie.
It's like the platform of lies. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing the best lies ever told.
Yep. Like this one on violent crime being down.
Americans are safer today than under Donald Trump. Trump continues to lie about crime in America.
Saying that crime rates are down compared to where Donald Trump was. And as we've covered on this show at length, a couple years ago, the FBI changed its reporting process for cities and states to report their violent crime numbers. And as of this year, about a third of city police departments still were not adopting the newest reporting program. Of those, that included LAPD and NYPD, among others. But you have two of the largest police departments where some of the most violent crimes are happening, not reporting to the FBI. It is no surprise that the FBI, only having data from 2/3 of police departments, would produce a metric saying violent crime is down.
But if they're not reporting, then obviously the stats would reflect that crime is on the way down. But
fewer
why
crimes
are there
being
all
reported,
these?
But they're still applying the total number of crimes to the nation.
Oh, it's going to be skewed number.
See, that's how it happens.
But they don't mind. I mean, they're all for making up stats. Like what? 90% of stats are made up 10% of the time, 90% of the time on the spot, right?
Yeah.
And but the thing is, people believe it because all he has to do is go out and say it.
Yeah.
This is the scary part. He just has to go out, spread the lies, and nobody's going to correct him.
This was his goodbye speech. I mean, he'll probably give another one when he leaves. Weird thing is there were moving vans at the White House yesterday. So people were wondering, is this it? He's going to California on vacation, and then he's going to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware on vacation, back-to-back vacations. He will not be there to watch Kamala Harris be coronated. Is he leaving the White House early? Is there a plan for him to resign and have her take over the 47th president?
I've heard a few people talk about this because the power of the incumbency, right? That's what they're hoping that would achieve. And I mean, it's at least they could already say on her resume now that Kamala was the first woman president.
Yeah, that's what they want. That's what
they
want. Re-elect the first woman president ever, who only got there by stabbing the president in the back.
Well, she's the first black woman president.
Yeah,
let's not forget.
First East Asian, first South Asian. Yeah. All right, couple minutes left. Here's another one.
Continues to lie about the border. Here's what he won't tell you. Trump killed the strongest bipartisan border deal in the history of the United States.
Oh, he did.
Trump didn't kill it. Trump wasn't a legislator.
Yeah,
All Donald Trump said is, if you're going to pass a border bill, this isn't it. HR 2 is still in Congress. That was the House Republicans' immigration border bill. Democrats, it's been on Chuck Schumer's desk for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Donald Trump just said, this is not the bill. And we went over at the time all the bad parts of this bill. Joe Biden also said falsely that illegal border crossings are down. If they're down, it is because historically illegal border crossings go down in the summertime because it is literally deadly to cross the desert when it's 110 degrees. So traditionally, illegal crossings have declined in June, July, August. To take credit for that is insane. And then the last one I have for him, I'll play it.
Let me ask you.
Let me try playing again. It's a little bit laggy.
Let me ask you. Are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask.
A bunch of people clapping to coronate the first person in modern American history to be on any major party ticket without a single person voting for them to be on the ticket. Wow. Kamala Harris has never received a vote in any primary to be her party's presidential nominee. To go out there and to say who's ready for democracy when this is quite literally the most undemocratic
thing you could ever do.
Coronation that this country has seen in the modern era. It used to be like this. Party bosses would smoke-filled rooms, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Not in the modern era.
No. And just to slap people's faces by lying to them like that, it's par for the course. I mean, they are built lie upon lie. And it's become so based on what they do that, I mean, it leads, right? They leads with lies. They're still going back to the Snopes lies, the fine people lies. It doesn't matter. It's the old school politicking, It's almost Chicago style politics. Make up whatever you can and see what sticks. And it makes you wonder if Barack Obama is running the whole thing behind the scenes because this is pretty artful. It's a masterful, suddenly there's a new person in and
the Obamas are tonight. The Obamas are tonight. There's a reason that Joe Biden's not sticking around. Why would he want to stick around and watch primetime speeches from all the people who stabbed him in the back?
Yeah. Yeah, I really wish he had said, you know what? I'm not out, y'all. I'm going for it. I'm back in.
Yeah. Lots of people say, what would you do if you had a time machine? If I had a time machine, go back in time and tell Donald Trump, don't do that debate. Schedule the debate immediately after the convention.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think Trump's still in a good spot. Latest poll from Virginia. Let's just show that right before we leave. Well, here we go. 3 polls from Pennsylvania. Last 3 polls from Pennsylvania show Donald Trump +1.
Wow.
So still neck and neck, but that's what it's looked like. It's not just Rasmussen, it's Emerson, an insider advantage. Him +1. That's a big deal.
It's pretty impressive.
Because he's going to overperform whatever these polls say by a couple points anyway. +1. But also the betting markets. They had been Kamala Harris as high as I think +60%. 60% chance. That's people saying, I'm willing to bet 60 cents that she'll win. And if I win, I get 40 cents to make it a whole dollar. That's how these betting markets work. Donald Trump's back up to 50%, 50-50 odds, people putting their money on it. And there were new polls out today from Roanoke polling in Virginia, of all places, showing Donald Trump only down 3 inside the margin of error. Roanoke polling in Virginia is very accurate. In 2020, they had Joe Biden leading by 11 points. He ended up winning by 10. So it's a very accurate poll, off by 1, but it's okay. Very accurate poll. If that's true here and that they're overestimating her appeal by 1%, it's a 2% race. You know what I mean? Like it is well within the margin of error. And so you start playing with the map and you start looking at a fun little scenario of Trump winning Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, and he's president without the votes even being tallied in Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania.
Going to be a tight one. Isn't it amazing how quickly the tides turned? Once they saw that Joe Joe Biden's performance at their debate, like they went into full fire mode. They brought in somebody out of nowhere to try to fill that role. And they did it with such a fury and fanaticism that they didn't even bother to try to get votes out of people to make it happen. That shows you the power of your party. If you're a Dem, they're willing to just roll over what you want to make sure they get what they need.
Now, will this happen with Virginia? It's going to be hard. You have Governor Youngkin in Virginia, a Republican governor. He has high approval ratings in Virginia. He has taken steps to combat the ways that elections are typically manipulated by Democrats, questionable legality. So a lot of those changes could help Trump. Listen, if he can expand the battleground, I mean, these are the states right now that they're competing for.
I mean, if you go
Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia.
Have you noticed
Arizona.
that Wisconsin hasn't really folded towards Walz yet? And Harris?
I saw 1+7. I saw 1+4.
Still from the margin. But there should have been a bigger bump than that. They should be up by double digits, especially in a incumbency state. I mean, he's governor, man. For God's sake, he should have our mini all wrapped up.
Yeah, he should. I think that he's going to win Minnesota. I think her picking him took Minnesota off the map.
Wisconsin, Minnesota. Yeah.
I think it took Minnesota off the map. But all these states, these are the battlegrounds. This is where Trump is going to be every single day. Kamala Harris is going to be every single day. And it's 106. Trump has 219 outside of this. He needs 50 electoral votes to tie. So it's all a game of where do you get 51 electoral votes? Got to have Georgia, got to have North Carolina, got to have Arizona, right? Then he's up to 269.
Yeah,
Nevada gets him 268. Then it's a pick. Where do you go? Maybe Arizona's too close to call, but he wins Pennsylvania. It's done.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the map. The dreams from the Democrats of, we're going to take Texas, we're going to take Florida. I encourage them to waste every dollar on Texas and Florida because it means they're not in one of these actual swing states.
Right.
So we'll see. It's a race. It's a race, more so than it was when Joe Biden did that debate, but it is just as much of a race in the months leading up to that debate as it is now. Donald Trump is just as likely to win as he was back then. So we'll see.
I could never imagine, poor sampling with some of these polls. You just never know what the truth is. And I think a lot of that is done on purpose because they love to swing.
One of the things that's coming out in these polling that is showing Kamala Harris way, way, way ahead is that they're oversampling the Joe Biden recall votes and undersampling Donald Trump recall votes. Basically, what they're saying is everyone who voted for Joe Biden will vote for Kamala Harris, but Trump isn't going to get all the people who voted for him before. So as soon as you weight it that way, of course it's going to show Kamala Harris victory. You look at some of these polls that show Kamala Harris +5. Okay, how are they weighting it? Oh, Democrat +5. Of course, if you poll 5% more Democrats, you're going to get Kamala Harris up by 5%. It's a turnout election. It's a turnout, and it's a flip.
Yeah, get there and vote, y'all. Vote.
Who's going to flip more? Who's going to win independence more? And who's going to turn out more? So that's what it is. All right, that's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like the podcast, subscribe, like, comment, share. We appreciate it. We're on Rumble. We're on YouTube, unless we get taken off of YouTube. And we're on Twitter, X. So follow us there, please. And as well as the audio edition of the podcast, we make this as audio friendly as possible so that you can listen as you're commuting, driving, and whatnot. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Hammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back our country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all stand and fight together. See you next time.
See ya.